What rookie running back was most impressive at the Combine? What skill players are we downgrading on a Shanahan-less Falcon squad? And how did the running backs finish in the FFPC in 2016? Plus, the 2016 FFPC Dynasty 500 #1 league champ Shane Hallam of DraftTV.com joins us to talk about his big victory, how he's treating the Patriots running backs, and his insight into the 2017 rookie class. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
Thanks a lot, Rob, and greetings and salutations, all you Balkaholics and Gerzakin addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host back in the studio this week, the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, will Brandon Marshall be the last Jets receiver cut this offseason? And how did the running backs finish in the FFPC in 2016? Plus, last year's FFPC $500 Dynasty #1 champ, Shane Hallam, will join us to tell us how he won the title and preview the incoming crop of rookies as well. I do not know how this show is going to go tonight, Dave, because we have so much stuff to get to. A lot of emails, a lot of tweets came in when we announced Shane Hallam was our guest tonight. So it might be kind of a wild show. So for everybody who normally tunes in, buckle up because you might hear something new tonight.
Awesome. I'm excited to have Shane on.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming since we could have the owner of the Hallam Hammers franchise come on. But he's actually been on the show. I mean, he's called in for when he's been doing his Pros vs. Joes team before. So we'll talk to him about Draft TV. We'll talk to him about the Combine that's going on, his title, a lot of fascinating, interesting stuff going on tonight. You are back in the studio. I want to thank Scott Johnson, of course, Coach's Crunchers, who filled in admirably for you last week.
I'm sure he did.
Said that this is his dream job now.
Really?
Yeah, but I think
I might be able to get out of it.
I think I think he wants me out of it. I think he just wants to do it solo.
No, you two do great. I should actually listen to the show. I'm sure you guys did fantastic.
Did you also know? I found this out. Chris Lambert actually paired up Lou Tranquilli and Scott Johnson.
Oh, really?
As co-managers for fantasy.
Oh, nice. She's like a little matchmaker.
That's exactly what I said on the show. I had no idea that Chris Lambert was a fantasy football matchmaker, but apparently she was. So
great.
Very cool. Let's announce the big announcement that took place at the FFPC this week. $250 Dynasty startups are live and going, including a $250 pre-NFL draft startup that is going to be going on. When does that start? For a couple of weeks?
March 18th. It's going to go off before the rookies are actually drafted.
Right. So you'll be picking rookies in this draft. There will not be a separate rookie draft. You just won't know where they're going to end up by the time you select them.
Right. So I mean that's part of the risk you take. If you draft a rookie early, you take Fournette at some point. You don't know where he's going.
Do we have any orphan teams left right now?
Yeah, we have some.
There are some left. Okay.
Yeah, there's like 3 1250 teams and some 750s. They're really well priced.
Check out the forums, myffpc.com, the message boards there, and you can see all the draft picks and players there. We also have not only slow DEs going on, not only slow Superflex DEs, we have a live DE that's taking place this coming Thursday, so less than a week away. We'll have our first redraft of 2017. That's exciting. Yours truly will be commissioning, so make sure you sign up for that. And then also a live classic or a slow classic that's filling up as well, 20-rounder. So very cool, very exciting. We are locked and ready to go for the 2017 season here with the FFPC. I didn't see this until very late. Fantasyland number 11 came out today, Dave, and it's the co-managers episode.
How exciting.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet, but I know from Peter Overzet and Pat Corain that they do have a lot of FFPC player interviews in this episode as well.
Awesome.
So check that out, rotoviz.com/podcast, rotoviz.com/fantasyland. You can listen to the latest episode there. High Stakes Lowdown returns this coming Thursday with Brian Holgen and Nelson Sousa going to be on that. So that will be very cool. You can check that out at the same RotoViz podcast URL as well. I want to thank Roto World and Rob for tonight's rundown. It's going to be a very running back heavy show. We're going to be talking about the veteran running backs from last year. We're going to be talking about the rookie running backs here in the Fantasy Flash as we lead off the show tonight. And, of course, Shane Hallam coming up to talk rookie and Dynasty talk as well.
Yeah.
So just that's the show tonight. That's
great. They know. They'll actually do the show.
Okay, I'll do the show.
You spend so much time talking about what the show's going to be about.
Right.
There's less show.
Well, now the people are deciding whether they want to continue listening or not.
They're going to the bathroom right now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We already got their download, so they can do whatever they want.
Yes. Yay.
That's right. LSU running back Leonard Fournette's official 40 time at the Combine on Friday was 4.51. His unofficial time is 4.51, 4.52. Graham Barfield from Fantasy Guru. Apparently Graham Barfield, no longer with Roto World, with Fantasy Guru now. Fournette has the 94th percentile weight-adjusted speed at 6 foot, 240 pounds. His speed score, second best among 235-plus pound running backs in the last decade.
There's a lot of qualifiers in there, by the way.
Well, it's basically he's a super fast big back.
It's the second best. Okay, so that's one qualifier.
Right.
Not the best. Among 235-pound running backs, so everyone was
235 plus,
pounds, yes.
Not just 235.
Right, 235 or more, which it's not that many, really.
Right.
You're mostly fullbacks.
Right.
In the last 10 years, decade. So,
right.
It's good. Don't get me wrong. But, it's not like it's a world beater.
Right. He is maybe not the greatest in the passing game, not the greatest when it comes to lateral movement. And
we wouldn't know. You know why we wouldn't know?
Because he didn't play in his bowl game?
No. Well, that might be too. But they did the three-cone drills today, and guess what? Only Christian McCaffrey's is out.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, NFL. Thanks a lot, NFL.com.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, NFL Network.
If anybody's listening in the chat room right now, if you can find a link to the
other than Christian McCaffrey's, that's the only one we know.
Yeah, other than Christian McCaffrey's three-cone time, we'd love to see the three-cone time for anybody else, any other running back today.
It'll be out tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, but for some reason they didn't publish it today.
Leonard Fournette, 28.5-inch vertical, which is what most offensive linemen are grabbing nowadays, and did not do the broad jump. The thing that's interesting here, by the way, they asked Fournette, what was with that vertical jump? And he's like, I'm not a jumper. So, Baker Boy, Joe Del Zanero, will not be drafting Leonard Fournette on any teams this year because he's not a high hurdler.
Yeah, that's true. I respect that. At least he's like, it's not his game.
Very honest about it. We've heard Leonard Fournette, really ever since last year as far as being a high dynasty pick. Does the from what he did at the Combine today, what's a bigger qualifier for what kind of pro he's going to be? His speed score, that he ran the 40 so fast for a big man, or his vertical jump?
Well, I think you're looking at more of a two-down back. He's not a pass catcher, so he's going to be someone where you're going to have to pair him with somebody else. I do think he's obviously going to score a ton of touchdowns on whatever team he's on. That's going to be one of his big roles. I do question how he's going to do in PPR leagues, though. So if you're taking someone like him at the 101 in a dynasty rookie draft, I don't know if I'll be talking about that later, but I don't know that I'm doing that.
I think about the last big back that came out of LSU to get into the NFL, Jeremy Hill. Which, by the way, he's been a roller coaster of dynasty value for 3 years. You could have bought and sold him multiple times. Right. Yeah. I wonder if there's anybody who drafted him, traded him away, then bought him on the cheap, then sold him high again. That's the type of guy I'd like to be a co-manager of a dynasty team with. And
now he's buying him back low.
Speaking of the number one running back, which could be Fournette this year, it might be somebody else. Could be Dalvin Cook, who ran a 4.49 at the Combine today. Unofficial times were not 4.49. Had a 4.5 and I believe a 4.51 if I remember seeing correctly. Dalvin Cook 5'10", 210 at the weigh-in. He benched 225 22 times. Only a 30.5 vertical inch jump. I don't know if he did do the broad jump, and it was really bad. It was like 8'9" or something like that.
Let's see. Broad jump was 116 inches.
Okay, so what is that?
9'8".
9'8". Oh, there you go. My dyslexia strikes again. So, yeah, I don't actually have to I don't have diagnosed dyslexia.
9'8" and 30.5 inches, not very explosive.
Checked out good as far as his shoulders go. He had those shoulder surgeries before, and people were nervous about that. 22 reps with the bench press and a clean check from the doctors obviously works in his favor here, Dave. I don't know if, it's tough to get too excited about these numbers, but you can't really throw him under the bus too much for what he did here as well. I think that the only thing that concerns me a little bit is, we've always heard the broad jump is a good qualifier to find out the lower body explosiveness that players have in the NFL. So that gets me a little bit concerned here. Mm-hmm. The other numbers weren't great, but they weren't enough for me to say like, oh, I'm not taking this guy in the 101 or 102.
Well, the thing that is unfortunate is, first of all, not having the 3-cone is unfortunate because if that might be an area where he does excel. I mean, do you think you watch Florida State? Do you think that's one of his talents or not really?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, I've never really. You remember who was the guy who was crying during the national anthem a couple of years ago from Georgia? You remember he was the Broncos for a long time. He was another guy that went Sean Moreno. That's who it was.
Right.
And he was another guy that like. Nobody ever really expected to.
4.640 wasn't all that.
Yeah, I mean, and Cook was actually better than. But like Cook to me is like, he doesn't strike me as the type of guy that was just going to crush the combine anyway.
Just a really good football player.
Yeah, he's a playmaker, and what he did with catching now he wasn't the greatest with blitz pickup. In fact, he was pretty terrible. But the other things he did, catching the ball in the backfield and just really turning any play into like a home run type play. This is what he does, and I don't think that really shines. That's not really what the focus is on the combine.
But I mean, I think what an NFL analyst or an NFL person would say is that he was a college playmaker, and that's fine. But without any elite explosiveness, without any elite speed, without any elite lateral agility, what does he bring that's elite to the NFL? And if the answer is nothing, how is he going to be a playmaker in the NFL? Because the NFL there's so much specialization. So I do wonder. I mean, you look at like Shady McCoy. Shady McCoy's got such amazing skills at the lateral acceleration. So
right.
I don't know. I mean, I honestly have not seen enough of Dalvin Cook to really make a great film analysis. Mm-hmm. You have. I question that a little bit.
Okay, and I'll say this in response to that: there are plenty of running backs in the NFL that aren't really elite in one specific category, except for fantasy numbers. So you don't necessarily.
There's really not that many elite fantasy running backs.
Well, I mean, you have Bell, Johnson, Elliott. Those guys are all up there, right? And then you still have LaShawn McCoy putting up good numbers this year.
Fantastic.
And then you had guys like who was the guy who finished in the I have it up right here.
The players you're talking about had elite characteristics.
Okay, but
I mean, Le'Veon Bell had a three-cone drill under. It was an amazing number.
Right. Okay. Devontae Freeman. This is a guy who's crushed the last 2 seasons in the NFL. I wouldn't say he does anything at an elite level. Okay, LeGarrette Blount is another perfect example. Does nothing special. Granted, he did score 18 touchdowns this year. Number 8 fantasy running back. You know what I mean?
A great role and a great offense.
So my point is, and Jordan Howard is another guy too that I don't think is particularly special. Still finished as a top 10 running back last year.
No, there's got to be 10 of them.
No.
I'm just saying.
Okay, fact that there has to be 10 of them.
Right.
I like Cook's talent a lot better than some of those guys that I just.
Very good point.
So
what? You're right there.
So maybe the analysis here is like Cook is not going to be an Elliott Bell Johnson world beater.
I just think it's less likely because he doesn't have those elite measures.
Right. Yeah, and I would agree with you.
I mean, it's not. I don't see him being a 300-point back, which they're so far few and far between.
Yeah.
But again, you have to look. Maybe there is one of those in this draft. Maybe there's not.
Is it Fournette? Because he is an elite speed scorer for his.
He does have. He definitely has one elite characteristic. I don't think he is because of the pass catching.
Christian McCaffrey. Let's get to talk about two Packers' favorite player in the NFL draft this year. His official 40-yard dash time 4.48. Slower on the hand time stopwatches, but the laser time at the combine was a 4.48. McCaffrey, 10 reps at the 225-pound bench press. And then what was his 3-cone today that we saw?
I think it was a 6.57.
And it was the second best
Second best. I know this is
since 2003. Is that what?
Second best running back since 2003? I believe it's since Bobby Rainey was who did.
Oh, of course, the electric Bobby Rainey. Yeah. How soon we forget about Bobby Rainey.
His three-cone drill is better than Odell Beckham's. Dude, I mean, think about his three-cone drill is better than Odell Beckham's. That's what we're saying again.
Yeah. And you did. 5'11", 202 for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and he looked fantastic. Today running routes. He looked amazing catching passes. I think he might be my number one running back right now.
Right. Wow. So you might like him over both Fournette and Cook.
Yeah.
That is interesting. And you have the added benefit of McCaffrey having a much better shot of going to a winning team with a strong offense already, whereas Fournette and Cook might not drop that far in the draft.
Maybe not. I mean,
although because they didn't, since Cook didn't do anything elite, maybe he falls. It's
absolutely possible, by the way.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It's also possible for McCaffrey to be an early second-round pick and be a Cleveland Brown next year. So
that's very true.
Who knows what is going to happen there. But, yes, McCaffrey certainly did not do any wrong to his draft stock today. We have Shane Hallam from the FFPC 500 Dynasty #1 coming up. Boy, we'll get into that. We'll get into that league in a little bit, but there's a lot of characters in that league.
Awesome.
One of the most exciting FFPC Dynasty leagues that we have. The last thing I want to get to before we get to Shane Hallam on the other side of the break, ESPN's Rich Cimini reports that the Jets, quote, aren't done cutting players. They could move on from Eric Decker as well. The Jets have already cut Ryan Clady, Breno Giacomini, Aaron Henderson, Nick Folk, Nick Mangold, Brandon Marshall, and Darrelle Revis. Eric Decker, Marcus Gilchrist, Calvin Pryor, Sheldon Richardson, Buster Screen, all possible cuts as well for the New York Jets. They may not field a team next year, Dave.
I mean, don't they have to spend a certain amount of their salary cap? I'm not sure I understand that. I know.
Well, maybe this is just the cap hell that they're in right now.
In our group chat, we were talking about how the Browns are $103 million under the cap. I don't understand. They have to spend a certain amount of the cap, or do they just pay a penalty, or is it something else? I think the way it works is if you don't hit the cap floor, that you have to pay that money, and then it's distributed amongst the players on the roster. Really?
Yeah, I believe that's how it works.
Huh. I should read up on that.
I think I just did read up on it, and the fact that I can't remember it exactly is really annoying, but I think that's how it goes.
I figured the owners would just take it. Like, you should have to put it into this kitty, and then the other owners get all the money.
Yeah, like doing the mustache thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If this cheap owner won't spend any money, or split it 50-50 with the players on the team, and then the other owners. That's a good idea. Now,
I did read after Rob and I put this together that Eric Decker actually, the Jets were talking about him actually getting in some work at OTAs. So it sounds like he actually is in their plans for 2017. Brandon Marshall is obviously not. Maybe the Jets would want to bring him back at a lower salary. I don't think Brandon Marshall wants to have anything to do with that. You talk about him, he could land in a good spot, like Baltimore.
Go back to the Bears.
You could go, but the fact is, if he lands somewhere and it's a semi-decent situation, you are not writing off him for 2017 redrafts.
Not at all. Totally interested. He's still got the talent. I haven't seen much drop off from him at all.
You worried about Eric Decker being the #1 for the Jets if it comes down to that? Because that was a role he kind of suffered in Denver.
Yeah, I wouldn't want him to be the #1. But I mean, he could. If they have decent quarterback play and he's getting a ton of targets, I think he'll be okay. He's a really good football player.
He is really good. Doesn't do anything elite, but man, we get those funny targets. And
he's a very elite football player. He's like
there you go.
He's a good catcher.
Hashtag analysis. Hashtag Shane Hallam coming up on the other side of the break. The $500 FFPC Dynasty #1 champ coming up right after this. You're listening to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Combine weekend is upon us here on the HSFF Hour. I'm Eric Balkman. He is Dave Gerzak. Did you actually watch any of the Combine today, Dave?
Yeah, I was watching like a few hours ago.
I just was getting updates on my phone. I didn't get a chance to watch it. Although I did watch Cooks, watched him run the 40.
Nice.
And it was, I was expecting more.
It wasn't.
I was hoping for more. I wasn't expecting more.
To be honest with you, I fell asleep during it.
Oh, that exciting, huh? I told
tomorrow
I told my wife tonight, we were talking and she asked me a question and I wasn't listening because I was on my phone, and she's like, "Are you listening?" And I'm like, "No, I was checking updates from the Combine." And she's like, "The Columbine?" And I'm like, "Yeah, the Combine, the Underwear Olympics." She's like, "What is the Underwear Olympics?" And then I kind of told her, like, "Well, we actually watched this last year a little bit." She's like, "Oh, I remember that. That was so stupid." So that's my wife's analysis.
The most honest analysis, that's actually pretty accurate.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's cool, the way that they're announcing it, and Leonard Fournette is coming up in just 2 years, Dalvin Cook is on deck here. And then, first we have Joe Smith from West Virginia, Missouri State Agriculture and Technical. It's just
terrible.
You know what I mean? It's just get this guy out of here. We want to actually see somebody who's going to be worthwhile this coming year. Somebody who was worthwhile this past year and this coming year. Very excited to have him on. He's been playing fantasy football since he was 10 years old and almost immediately began playing Dynasty fantasy football. Currently plays in more than 30 Dynasty leagues. In 2014, he joined the high-stakes ranks of Dynasty fantasy football with the FFPC, won his first FFPC Dynasty title in the $500 number one league last season. Please welcome from DraftTV.com, Mr. Shane Hallam. Welcome in, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. How's it going, Eric, Dave?
Well, it's going very good. I think Combine Weekend is
Columbine Weekend.
Yeah, I don't want to bring Columbine into this, but it's always a very exciting weekend for us because, Rob and I put this show together, and the news, Dave, you comment on this every week. The news is kind of bare from Super Bowl on, and then once Combine Weekend hits, there's more juicy stuff. There's more stuff to talk about, and we get to talk to an exciting guest tonight too, which is always good. Shane, when you're not winning that illustrious $500 Dynasty League with the FFPC, what are you doing for a living?
Yeah, so actually similar to Scott Johnson you had on last week, I'm a high school social studies and English teacher at Keystone Oaks High School in Pittsburgh, PA, but instead of coaching, I probably do what many would consider the opposite. I actually direct the musicals at the high school. I direct and produce those. So this is my 7th year. We're putting up Footloose in 4 weeks. So that takes a lot of my time. And then once that's over, it's all draft, all Dynasty, all fantasy ready to go.
Wow. Now
arranging those musicals, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, to do that. Wow. That's
it's a lot of time and effort. Shane, do you have a lot of help with that?
I have a pretty solid staff, but I'm at the school. I'm at the school 5 days a week, all day Saturday, and then when we get into mid-March, probably about 7 days a week, building, making stuff happen, costuming, everything. It's intense. It's an intensive process, but it's a lot of fun. It's something I've always enjoyed, and something different that I've definitely used and applied to my life and to football and vice versa. So it's kind of an interesting, weird crossover dichotomy of football and musical theater, but I think there's a lot of similarities actually.
See, Shane believes in the classics, Paul.
Yeah, he does.
The liberal arts.
Well, not only that, but the backbone of America, back-to-back weeks of the show. We have Scott Johnson, a teacher, on last week. We have Shane Hallam, a teacher, on this week. This is the new gold mine of where the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour will be getting guests from is America's teachers.
Possibly.
Yeah.
All right, Shane, let's talk football. Congrats on the 500 Dynasty number one title. It's the number one league, Balky.
Yeah, that's and by the way, I think Shane is. I'm not making this up. I think Shane is the 7th member of this league to be a guest on this show.
Hey, all the cool people went in the first league.
Yeah,
it's the craziest, most active trading league. People would probably pay $1,000 to get in this league. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And so, how did you build the squad to get it to championship level, especially with all the trading going on?
Well, that's the thing. This is by far the most active league that I'm in out of my 30 plus dynasties, and trading is what helped me get there. I think that's the backbone of a good dynasty team, is to not be afraid to trade and not be afraid to make those moves. I'll give you an example, kind of a long-winded example, but of how I built this team. So I essentially I'm just trading things away. In 2015, I traded Randall Cobb for Sammy Watkins and Ladarius Green. And I just continued trading. I'd eventually trade Watkins for 2 first-round picks, Calvin Johnson, D'Angelo Williams. I'd eventually trade Ladarius Green for Latavius Murray in a second. I'd eventually get a first and a second-round pick for Calvin Johnson and Jeremy Hill. I turned some of Latavius Murray into Derrick Henry, who I trade with DeMarco Murray to get David Johnson. And then all those trades end up getting me Antonio Brown. So it actually, when I would go back and look at this, I eventually got Randall Cobb back for Demaryius Thomas in a second. So I went back and looked, and I traded Demaryius Thomas, Jeremy Hill, Matt Forte, Dorial Green-Beckham, and I ended up with Kelvin Benjamin, Antonio Brown, and David Johnson. Over the course of 2 years, just by continuing to trade, continuing to try and get value where I saw it. I wasn't afraid to trade for a guy and then turn around and trade him again in, 4 months. I wasn't afraid to trade Randall Cobb away and trade for him, get him back in a year and a half. It's about playing that value game. As you mentioned with someone like Jeremy Hill, where his value just keeps fluctuating. If you can buy low, if you can sell high, and then when you finally get to that point where I felt like I did, I really felt like 2015 was my year. I kind of pushed my chips in and made big trades for Matt Forte. That didn't work out. I had Jimmy Graham on my squad who didn't do anything, and it was frustrating. I had what I felt was the best team on paper. I didn't make the playoffs, and so I kept going. I kept trading, kept making changes to this team, and ended up with a team that could win a title and still have some youth there.
And Shane, I think a lot of people are in dynasty leagues where there's not, well, let's face it, like 99% of other dynasty leagues do not have the amount of trading that is done in this league. I think it's easier, in my opinion, to let guys go and to trade for, players more continuously in this type of league, because you don't necessarily look at it at the standpoint like, I'm giving up on this guy and I'll probably never get him back again. You know that there's a very realistic possibility in a league with this many trades that if you really wanted the guy, you could probably swing a deal to get him back again, and it just makes trading that much more fun and that much more active.
And it's just such a great group of guys. We basically hang out in a group me and talk to each other 24/7, probably about 3/4 of the league. So we've gotten to know each other personally, and I mean there have been times where, and I've done it, other people have done it. It's not like a one-time thing where people have traded for a player and then turned around within 24 hours and traded that player away. So, I don't know how you do that. I don't have another league where that happens. And it does. It's so much easier because you don't feel locked in. There's never a situation where you feel like I can't get rid of a guy. I can't make a deal. Yeah, sometimes you're not going to get the value that you want. I don't think there's anyone in this league that's a sucker that's going to take on bad value. But at the same time, if you want to build your team a certain way, you have the freedom to do that. You're going to have the pieces that you can do that. And to me, that's what Dynasty's about. You can't be afraid to take chances. It's not going to always work out. I mean, I traded Greg Olson for Kamar Aiken and Ladarius Green this past year. It was a terrible trade. And you're going to make those bad trades. But it's all about a net gain. If you can get a net gain in these, then it's going to win. And it also helps just you don't have to be the free agent hawk. You don't have to be the best at drafting if you can continue to make moves. If you know you're not the best at evaluating rookies, you can trade those picks away for something or vice versa. If you think you're good at evaluating rookies, then you can gather those and build that way. And I feel bad for the leagues that just don't have those options.
Shane, let's talk about some of those pieces that you have acquired over the past couple of years. Aaron Rodgers, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Antonio Brown. Have you considered, and maybe this just goes without saying, that everybody on your roster is always available at the right price? Have you considered shopping any of these guys around to get a big return to try to set yourself up for years to come? Or is this the type of league where you try to ride these studs out as long as you can? Maybe you sell them off a year early to try to get maximum value on them. But how are you treating these 4 studs on your roster going forward?
And these are 4 guys that I didn't draft. That I traded for all of them. It's still my favorite trade is for Le'Veon Bell when he was hurt after being drafted. I traded Justin Blackmon in the 3rd for him, which feels good now. But wow. I'm kind of in that situation. Yeah, I'll trade anyone for the right price, but I really reflected this offseason after winning that title. What is the right price for players like this? And with a team that I have that has a lot of top-end talent, players that are fairly consistently good, and I don't have dreams that Le'Veon Bell is going to always be a stud running back with his injury history and everything that goes into that. I don't have dreams that David Johnson is going to be a stud running back for 10 years with all the carries that he's getting. I'll be lucky if he lasts 2 to 3 years with all of that. But these opportunities, these windows don't happen often. I think sometimes in Dynasty, and this is really how I usually play, and probably one of my biggest weaknesses is I just go way too young, right? I'm into the college scene and analyzing these draft prospects, and so I will always just trade for picks and love drafting guys because I love the draft, and you pay for it because you have to wait and you have to develop these players. So I mean, what's the haul, right, for David Johnson? What do I get? 4 first-round picks? Is that really going to help my team? Do I have that roster space? And the FFP, you don't have 40 roster spots to house these guys and develop these guys. So I've almost said to myself to kind of go the opposite of my instinct. My instinct is trade them away now before that value falls off. Let's ride this out. I always talk about 3-year windows. I think if you're looking beyond that, then you're making a mistake. And I looked beyond that for years playing Dynasty. I was like, I want to get this guy for 10 years. For 12 years, he's going to be the bedrock of my team. That doesn't happen. I mean, go back and look at the scoring from 3 years ago. How many players are gone, are late-round picks now, are considered crap as values? That's what happens. So if you can just win, 2 out of 3 years, or, like Henry Muta did, won back-to-back-to-back titles. I don't know how you do that in Dynasty, but that's incredible. Then I think you go for it. So I've kind of said I'm going to keep pushing my chips to the middle here and go for this title for a year or two. And then when I get to that point where one of these players falls off or things aren't working out, then I can kind of go back to rebuild mode.
Interesting. That was a great analysis.
Yeah.
I don't even have a question on
that.
Sorry, moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
So you've been
try to compose yourself. And,
I'm flush, Balky.
Yeah, I know the Hallam magic.
We've been
washing over you.
You've been wheeling and dealing in this league already to get ready for this 2017 season. Take us through the deal that you made for Travis Kelce, where you gave up a 2018 first, Josh Doctson, and Hunter Henry.
It was kind of a weird process because I felt like my one weakness, after winning the title, sometimes I don't want to sit on my laurels, especially in a league like this. And my one weakness was tight end. I had Jimmy Graham, who had a great season, but I didn't feel great about him for the future, even for next year. So I traded him for Hunter Henry straight up, which I thought was a great deal at the time, got younger. I think Hunter Henry is going to be great. I don't know if he's going to be great this year, but I think it's something that's going to happen in 2 years. And tight ends just take a while to develop. They take 3 years. So once again, if I'm kind of pushing my chips all in, I started exploring who are those best tight end options. Maybe I could go after a veteran like Greg Olsen, who might have a year or two left, or I could kind of go big. I mean, I think Travis Kelce at this point, you could argue is the number one tight end with Gronkowski's injuries now. So I started inquiring. The price was a little bit high, and just kind of continuing to talk it out. Doctson I took with the 1-3 last year. I still like him, but he's an older player. He's probably going to be the number one in Washington. So it was tough to give him a first, and Hunter Henry, who's well worth a first for Kelce. But it was a situation where I could take advantage of a team that wanted to get a lot younger, that's looking to the future. Travis Kelce is a young player, but not really going to help them win a title here. And I felt like that tight end was my last piece. I mean, if I have Aaron Rodgers, I have Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, I can add the top tight end or top 3 tight end to that group. I think it could really make this team unstoppable. And I just felt like I've never gotten that opportunity with a dynasty team before, and I felt like I had to take it before it ran away.
Yeah, and with the tight end premium format, it definitely makes it easier to give up those pieces to get a guy like Kelce. And we're talking with Shane Hallam, the $500 Dynasty #1 champ with the FFPC last year. And Shane, the Combine, we've mentioned it already several times on the show. It's going on this weekend. Are there any rookies there that you're paying special attention to for Dynasty purposes this weekend?
I could go on for hours if you want me to, because I love the combine and I love analyzing these college players going in. You know, you're talking about these running backs that ran today, and we saw the workouts today. I thought was super intriguing. I was really interested in Christian McCaffrey, who you were talking about earlier, running that 4.48, and really even more importantly to me was where the pass catching drills for him were just excellent. And it's tough for a player of his magnitude. I don't think he's going to be a every down running back. I think there could be teams in certain systems where he could work that way, but he's going to catch a lot of passes. You're going to put him out wide. You're going to put him in the slot. And so I think if he finds his way and is drafted by a team with some offensive creativity, then I really like him. And I wanted to see if he could be that versatile player at the combine that we kind of saw at Stanford, and I thought he held up pretty well. But you know, after Fournette and Cook obviously are the top guys, but I wanted to see that next step of players. I think the next tier is very large. There's a lot of players that I like. Alvin Kamara from Tennessee, Samaje Perine from Oklahoma, who did not have such a good combine. Maybe he falls a little bit. And what these players can do. One guy that kind of impressed me today was Jeremy McNichols out of Boise State, a player that's had a very successful career, very quick on his feet. And he's decisive, you know. So once again, not a player that I feel is going to be stud running back. But how many workhorse running backs do we have? You know, stud workhorse running backs. We don't have it. But if I can get a guy that's going to catch passes, that I think can move pretty well and find a hole pretty well, that's someone that I'm looking at. So I think Jeremy McNichols is very similar to what Jay Ajayi was coming out of Boise without some of the injury problems that he had. So that's someone that's intriguing to me. And I think wide receiver wise, I think the class is going to get overhyped. I don't think it's great. I think we're going to push these guys up a little more than we want to because the running backs are so good, and you kind of want to buy in. But you know, after the top players, the Mike Williams and those guys, I really want to see Juju Smith-Schuster from USC. A player who, coming into the season, like a lot of USC wide receivers, was considered he's the top guy. You know, he's in. And then he has the season that doesn't live up to expectations, and it was going to be tough for him to do anyway. And his big question is speed. This is a player that has size, that has hands, but like a lot of those past USC wide receivers, he doesn't have that deep speed. Can he actually separate? So he's going to get a chance to answer that when we see the vertical leap, when we see the 40 time, obviously, but when we see the three cone, you're going to get to see some of that explosiveness from him. And I think he's a player that could be underrated now because he kind of has the big name, but could drop a little bit, and people are going to just talk him down. That you might be able to get a steal for a really talented player in Juju Smith-Schuster, and I want to see how he does. So, I mean, I like I said, I could go on and on. I have a ton of players. These wide receivers, I just want to see if someone can really separate themselves in that second tier, in that late first, early second round mix after the big couple, and see if we can actually get someone that's going to be worth a first round dynasty pick.
One of the things I did see today when the guys on ESPN were talking about how Mike Williams announced he won't be running the 40 this weekend, and obviously that was a big question for him is, you know, how fast is he? And Bill Polian, I thought this was great. Bill Polian said this is a red flag. You know, everybody says, oh, Mike Williams is great at catching the ball in a crowd. Well, he's great at it because he's always in the crowd, because he can't run away from the crowd, because he's not fast enough to get away from the crowd. That's funny. It's totally true, you know. So, and Mike Williams is another guy too, and I'm totally with you on Juju Smith-Schuster.
Coming down with contested balls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
We don't want receivers who are good at that. We're never going to contest.
Yeah, exactly. Like we want him to be able to do it, you know. But it's like a lawyer. We want a lawyer. We hope we never have to use a lawyer, right. But we want him to be able to lawyer, you know. Right. So anyway, Dave, go ahead.
All right. So Steve Sarkisian is the offensive coordinator for the Falcons.
He is.
That's because Shanahan took off.
So he went to San Francisco, and then Sarkisian left Alabama.
There you go. So do you expect a significant regression for anyone? I knew that because I saw Shanahan was getting interviewed tonight on NFL Network.
Oh, there you go.
And they were talking about whether his dad should join him and making stupid jokes. Mariucci, he's always kissing ass.
Nobody questions the Dizzle.
Do you expect a significant regression for anyone in the Atlanta offense?
I think we're going to see a slight regression. I think Matt Ryan's going to come back down to earth a little bit. He's still very talented, but I think we just I think that Sarkisian is a guy that will kind of ride that hot running back hand. I think Kyle Shanahan obviously is one of the best play callers in the NFL. But that Super Bowl second half, you have to run the ball, and I think Sarkisian is a guy that would have run the ball 20 times and doesn't care about the feelings of his quarterback, his receivers. I mean, that's what at USC, at Washington, it was, who's going to get the job done, and he wanted to keep that balance. He likes to run the clock. He likes to keep that kind of going and use the run to set up the pass and set up play action. So I don't think we see the Kyle Shanahan kind of slinging it around. Julio will still have his, and he's still going to be that main target. But I don't think we're going to get a wide receiver two. This isn't the offensive coordinator that's going to get us a wide receiver two to finally emerge from Atlanta. It's not going to. A tight end's not going to emerge. But I think Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman are still going to get theirs, and I think both of them can still be successful together. And ultimately, as long as Atlanta's defense holds up and they don't get down in games, which it seems like it should, then I think Matt Ryan's going to throw the ball less, maybe a little more efficient, but throw the ball less. And just with how the quarterbacks, there's so many, there's no reason to go after a Matt Ryan earlier than you need to at this point. And I'm interested to even see where he's going to get drafted and redraft, and where people are willing to take him now. But I don't think this is a good sign for him or for this passing game.
So speaking of the Falcons, Balky, you heard the Julio Jones big news.
Yeah.
That he was getting surgery done.
Yeah.
And then Roto-World updating a previous report, he's still deciding on surgery. It looks to be a bunion. Might have to remove a bunion. Apparently it won't affect him to start the season, the bunion removal.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has any of the those veins, the varicose veins.
Veins.
I don't know if they're removing any of those or not, but
I need to see his chiropodist.
Okay.
Is that what it's called? Chiropodist? When you have a bunion?
I'm not sure.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
Like a wart remover.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure they have some of those.
You get that at Walgreens or like CVS, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but apparently you would. Let's get to a quick break here. We have much more with Shane Hallam, the FFPC 500 Dynasty #1 champ from last year. We come back. We talked about the Falcons. Let's talk about the team they played in the Super Bowl, the Patriots, specifically that backfield. You're listening to HSFF Hour on the Fantasy Sports Radio Network. Shane Hallam, the 2016 FFPC Dynasty #1 league champion last year, joins us here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour tonight. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. Shane, let's talk about this Patriots backfield because it's one seemingly in flux. We saw what James White did in the Super Bowl, Super Bowl MVP runner-up, let's call him, behind Brady. Does this make him a candidate for being overdrafted in redraft leagues this coming year, and maybe Dion Lewis becoming a value? Or are you staying away in general from both of these guys, assuming LeGarrette Blount, he could be re-signed, he might not be re-signed, we don't know, but we know White and Lewis will be there this coming year. How are you handling those guys?
Personally, I think James White will only be overdrafted by a stupid person. So if someone's actually drafting him decently high to have any type of value, then they're off the mark. I mean, we've seen this with the Patriots, with running backs and with receivers and guys emerging. I mean, James White is just fine to catch the ball every once in a while, but that Super Bowl performance isn't going to translate to the regular season. Bill Belichick doesn't care about what James White did in the Super Bowl. It's going to be what can win them games. And honestly, I think Dion Lewis could become a value, and looking at his ADP and seeing how low he's going. But I just stay away. I mean, even LeGarrette Blount, he had all those touchdowns, but I feel like I can just never start Patriots running back. I don't even know the last one I felt like I could consistently start every week and feel pretty good that it's going to get. Maybe Corey Dillon. I don't know. Like, who was the last Patriots running back that you really felt good every week that you were going to get something out of, especially with the smaller pass catching kind of roles. It's hit or miss. And I feel like there's situations that are at least a lot more concrete that you can utilize and draft. I'd almost rather draft a player that I knew, a running back 2 on his team that I knew, okay, this is a guy that I can't start unless that starter gets hurt, than draft James White and 1 week he might drop 25 points and the next week he might drop 2, and I have to try to guess when do I want to play him in my flex or when do I want to keep him on my bench. And that sometimes creates more problems and loses you more points than having just a solid, reliable bench and a solid, reliable starting lineup and making those moves when injuries happen. So I'm staying away. I usually stay away from Patriots running backs in general, and I'll continue that.
Shane, we got I wouldn't say a bunch of emails for you tonight, but we do have a bunch of questions from several emails and a couple of tweets. So I want to
these are exciting.
Yeah, give as much time and attention as we can to these. The first one's from, of course, former guest of the show, Biplab Mandel. He writes, "Yo, Balky, couple of serious questions for Shaney Boy tonight. Number 1, are we going to see a 2017 live NFL draft coverage through Draft TV? And 2, Fournette or Cook? Who is going to be the better Dynasty-relevant running back? Cheers, Biplab." Biplab, thank you for the email. Shane, I'll let you handle this about Draft TV, about the live draft coverage, and then you can talk about Fournette versus Cook.
See, Biplab just wants me to talk about this and have that live draft stream so you can know who I'm drafting in the 500 number 1 before I do it. And so I'm actually not going to have a live draft stream this year. Just from a pure time perspective. I'm getting married in June. I have the musical stuff and everything. I haven't been. Thank you. So I haven't been quite as up on some of the later round guys that I've wanted to be from all the positions, especially defensively. I've been pretty poor at watching them. So I'm not going to be doing it this year, but hopefully next year I'll be right back into it at Draft TV. And look, you have to go with Fournette. I think both are good players. I think Dalvin Cook has a lot of talent. Neither of them are explosive athletes. They're not going to be shot out of a cannon. But you just don't find someone with Fournette's physical makeup, and that doesn't mean that he is bust proof by any means. I think Trent Richardson taught us all a very firm lesson in that. But if Fournette gets in the right situation, he has such nice balance. He has good footwork, and he has that speed to go with power, strength, and size. You can't tackle him one-on-one. It becomes very difficult. So as long as he can get through the hole, he's going to be pretty dynamic. I think Dalvin Cook might do a little bit more for you from a pass catching perspective, which can help with fantasy. But the 1-1, I'm going to take Fournette, even if he's not good. I mean, let's say his first year he goes to crappy situation, he's terrible, and I'm like, oh, this guy's not going to work out. I don't think he's going to work out. His value's not going to go down that much, no matter how bad he does. Even if he tears his knee up in year 1, I can probably trade him away in Dynasty in that offseason for a decent haul. So for me, I think that's well worth it. The value's not going to be killed even if he does poorly, and I think sometimes that's almost more important when you assess value of trading players away.
Another fellow league mate of yours wrote in tonight. This is from Zeb Cap, this next email. I'm going to read this in pieces just because I think it'll play better on the show. He writes, "I have a feeling that Bip is going to try and bust my balls tonight with questions for Shane. So here's some material just in case." Well, he didn't really bust balls, but he did ask the question. So he says, maybe do a game of Would You Rather with Shane. And so the first one, this is going to get not suitable for work here. Would you rather negotiate...
We're not at work.
That's true. Would you rather negotiate a trade offer with Zeb or with Biplab?
Oh, man, it's not even a question. Like, it is Zeb 500 times out of 500. Like, Bip tries to nickel and dime every single thing he can out of a trade, and his initial offers are so far off the mark that sometimes you just shake your head. At least like Zeb, I can talk to. I mean, we've worked out. He sent something, I sent something back. We're done. Bip, it's like a 2-week process of 75 emails to get a trade done.
That's awesome.
All right, next one. Would you rather watch BBC or CNN with BipLab?
Look, sometimes you gotta be confident in yourself and watch a little BBC. So I'll do it if that's what Bib wants.
Okay, this is the next one here. Would you rather explain the shocker to BipLab or negotiate a 3-player trade with BipLab involving current and future picks?
We've all tried to explain the shocker to BipLab. I don't think he'll ever get it. And I think that 3-way trade sounds also impossible. So I'm going to say actually neither of those could actually happen.
Okay, final one here. Would you rather have Zeb post something on GroupMe's league chat and have your students see it on accident, or have Kevin O'Connor's cocktail video appear in front of your students? This is so inside baseball. I have no idea what this says. But at least your league mates will get it.
Yeah, the cocktail video took me a while. Sometimes my students have seen the GroupMe and it has not gone well, but it's better than a giant penis on the screen in my classroom. So.
No Anthony Weiner still.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. And then he just has a comment to end the email. Also, I believe that sexual favors were involved when Shane traded for Gordon, David Johnson, and Antonio Brown. Please ask if quote-unquote additional compensation was included in those trades. It should be criminal for a guy to have Bell, Gordon, DJ, and Brown on the same team. I must be in a league with a bunch of idiots for him to assemble that team via trade. Thanks, Zeb. Now, you'd think like, oh, okay, that was a cool email from Zeb. Well, he actually wrote in again, and another Shane question is the subject line. He writes, he and I traded Jeremy Maclin for Rashard Matthews. I received Matthews. He accepted without any haggling. Who got the better end of that deal? So obviously, Shane, I don't know how you feel about this. Let's talk about the Maclin for Matthews trade. You getting Maclin in exchange for Rashard Matthews.
Yeah, look, I think it was pretty even. For me, I just don't think Rashard Matthews is super talented. I think, yeah, he had a good year and is kind of one of those fantasy players like, he had good stats, he's young, he's in a good situation, he must be good. Watching him, I don't think he's a good player. I think Maclin was just beat up and hurt, and I like him. I love him as a buy low. He's still going to be the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City, even with Tyreek Hill is never going to be a number 1 wide receiver. So I want to take a shot on Maclin. If he gets healthy, comes back, I think he's a solid bench receiver you could plug in. And Rashard Matthews, another one of those guys I could just never start because I never knew. So
good stuff. That was
good. Yeah.
All right, no more emails. Now we're moving on to one of our classic
Oh, you know
questions.
what?
What do we got?
Hold on. No, I don't have emails. And Shane, you might have seen this because have seen this because the guy mentioned you on Twitter, and I had it, and now I don't. Okay, here it is. This is at SWA Pilot 57. I'm trying to get Mike Evans. Owner wants 105 and 108, and Derrick Henry, and then maybe Rashard or Jordan Matthews. Is that too much to give up for Mike Evans? The 105, the 108, Derrick Henry, and then either one of those receivers.
I think I would jump at giving that for Mike Evans, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, you still have a young, super talented receiver who's big and fast and an obvious target. I mean, the 105 is probably going to be decent this year, but you're not going to get anyone on Evans' talent level. I don't think the 108 is going to be phenomenal. And, to be honest, the players are solid, but Derrick Henry's still the number 2. And I think either of those receivers are guys that I'm not confident in. So why not get a wide receiver 1 that you're confident in? You don't get that chance too often.
That's true, and you can keep that. You can keep Evans for how many years? You get your tenure, your 10-year guy.
10 plus, maybe. Exactly. You never know.
All right, so here we go. Give us a guy that you think will be an early round bust next year, and a player. Well, this year, I guess, and a player that will end up having big value as a late round sleeper in 2017. Redrafts, not Dynasty.
So my sleepers, I'm going to start with the late round sleeper. I'm going to go with Tyler Lockett from Seattle. I think the Seahawks offense will bounce back, especially the passing game. I think Russell Wilson will improve. And I really liked what I saw from Tyler Lockett when he was fully healthy as a rookie and last year as well. It wasn't often last year, but he had a couple solid games where he was getting targets, where he was making defensive players miss. I still think he's just a solid receiver. So he's someone that's going super late, kind of gets forgot about now because he was so banged up and had some goose egg games and 1 or 2 catch games. I think Lockett is the late round sleeper. And for my bust, I'm going big. I'm going Ezekiel Elliott. I think that I love him. You know, I'm an Ohio State alum, but I think that first year is going to be very tough to do again. And you know, we always see the second-year running backs usually struggle a little bit because I think when you get that full year of tape on these players, when you start to see some of their tendencies, I think it becomes tough to stop. Yeah, Dallas's offensive line's great, and Zeke will continue to get the carries, but I think we could see a little bit of a shift more to the pass if Dak Prescott develops. And I think Ezekiel Elliott, if he does get stopped, if he does start having bad first quarter, that he could get frustrated and we could see maybe some move away from him. So it's a bold take, but I think Zeke is going to be overvalued and overdrafted.
Shane, you've been incredibly gracious with your time tonight. I really appreciate it. Congrats on getting married, by the way, coming up in June. I don't know how much time you're going to be able to dedicate to Draft TV, but tell the listeners who maybe have not heard of Draft TV before what it's all about.
Sure. DraftTV.com's website I started a couple years ago, and my big thing was that I hate reading long articles, despite being a teacher. So I don't really like reading. So I'd rather watch things. And I felt like there was kind of a void. We have some great football podcasts, some great football articles, but in terms of video where you can actually show what players do, that's what I really want to do with Draft TV. So I've done a lot with that, with tape, with live streaming during the NFL draft, like I do most years. And maybe not this year, but next year we'll kind of get it back and something to bookmark and save.
You can follow him on Twitter at Shane P. Hallam, of course, at Draft TV on Twitter as well. Shane, thanks so much for joining the show tonight. I really enjoyed this. I think I learned a lot about myself through the 500 Dynasty number 1 Would You Rather that Zeb Cap presented us with tonight. So that was very entertaining. Great stuff as well, winning the league. Maybe you can repeat this year. You certainly have the horses to do it. I wish you nothing but the best going forward, and we'll talk to you again soon, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. I've wanted to come on the show for years, and I'm happy to finally be a guest. So thanks.
Well, you are very welcome. Glad to have you tonight. That was awesome stuff. Shane Hallam of the Hallam Hammers FFPC 500 Dynasty number 1. The illustrious 500 Dynasty number 1.
Sorry to interrupt you. I feel like the interviews are always just too short, even though even if they are longer.
I mean,
too short. It's been going for
you could
forever.
We could have talked. There's so much I wanted. Let's talk about Alvin Kamara. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. Let's talk about Jeremy McNichols. Let's talk about Juju Smith-Schuster. We really, we don't have time. We do have time for one more segment left in the show. What's coming up right after this? We're going to talk about the running backs, how they finished, what we're looking forward to in 2017 with the FFPC. Eric Balkman, Dave Gerzak, HSFFO, our Fantasy Sports Radio Network. NFL Combine weekend will be gone before we know it. But at least we're here to talk a little bit about the running backs tonight here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I'm Eric Balkman. He's Dave Gerzak. Receivers go tomorrow, Dave, or is that Sunday where we see the receivers?
I think it's tomorrow they do most of their crap.
And then great. And then tight ends are Sunday?
I thought that was the same day. I thought they were the same day.
Oh, do they really?
Who knows?
Oh, all right. Well, fair enough.
I think it is. So the running backs are all done now?
I don't know what other drills they would have to do. I mean, they're probably going to be meeting with teams, but
sent them on their way or whatever. Meet with teams.
Yeah. So I would think that's pretty much it for them, and then they're probably going to all go home and get ready for their pro days. But it was very cool to see what we did tonight. It gives us a look into What we'll foresee in 2017 for the rookies. What did we see last year with the 2016 running backs? Dave, as we take a look back at how the running backs finished in the FFPC last year, and right at the top, number one, no surprise, David Johnson, 406 fantasy points. That is mind-boggling. Can he do it again this year with the corpse of Carson Palmer throwing to the slightly less corpse-ian corpse of Larry Fitzgerald? I mean, seriously, in all honesty, I don't know. I don't think we can expect another 400-point year from David Johnson, but how close can he come to repeating this performance this coming year? Because a lot of people are taking him first overall.
I think he will have an excellent year. I know what you're saying. I'm going to have to use the word regression to the mean, Balky.
Yep, that's right.
I think he'll be great, though. I really do. I mean, 400 points, it was ridiculous. But, 300 to 350 is possible. 300 now in this day and age is a fantastic running back year.
And then we look at, too, Dave, depending upon if you look at total points or points per game, the number 2 and 3 running backs could flip-flop. Number 2 by total points is Ezekiel Elliott. Number 2 by points per game is Le'Veon Bell. Of course, Bell missed those 3 games earlier in the season. So
Bell, he's averaging about, he's in the David Johnson range.
He's in that same category. And I think, honestly, if it wasn't for the injury question, I'd feel much more comfortable, or comfy, as I like to say, drafting Le'Veon Bell over David Johnson just because of the elite offense that he plays on. I'm a little worried about Arizona's offense.
I mean, yeah. I'm not too worried about Bell as far as an injury goes. I think he'll be all right.
See, you say that every year, and then every year he ends the season on the sidelines.
Yeah, he missed week 17? Was that?
Well, he missed the playoff. Remember, he had those 2 or 3 carries, and then they benched him the rest of the game because of the knee.
For fantasy perspective, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
Well, I mean, that
season, Julio, I let you down every couple of seasons.
Right.
Jones in the fourth, he just waits till the fantasy playoffs to piss all over your cereal, man.
No.
Julio is the one you shouldn't like.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm not saying I would take him at the 101 or 102 either, but I mean the point with
Le'Veon waits till the playoffs.
Right, yeah.
He gets you the championship.
Yeah. And then he hurts his knee.
Then he hurts himself.
You heard Shane talk about being bold and saying Elliott's going to be a bust. Elliott's, how much is he in the conversation for being taken as the first or second running back off the board now that we see these numbers?
I mean, I would not take him first or second. I mean, I think he is a little bit behind that. I don't think he busts. But that's a gutsy thing for Shane to say. I mean, there's always that possibility.
Yeah.
And
he's going big.
He made good points. I mean, those second-year running backs end up having a lot of problems a lot of times.
Yeah. A guy that averaged essentially 0.7 points less than him this past season, and then Ezekiel Elliott, was LaShawn McCoy, and he comes in number 4 overall. McCoy's the reason.
Right.
You have week 17. I just have week 16.
Very
so
good.
There's going to be a difference
All
there.
right. Sorry, Balky.
Are you switching it, or otherwise I can switch mine?
We'll talk in the same. We're both on the Carrington Dynasty.
Carrington Dynasty. Yep. Yeah. I can't use this when we go back on tight ends. I'll actually use the FFPC software then. But as we look at this right now, LaShawn McCoy might be breaking in a new quarterback this year, new head coach this year. He finishes number 4 running back. Are we kind of underrating him a little bit right now? Is McCoy a guy that should be taken in the first round of fantasy drafts?
I have to just research who the coaching staff.
Sean McDermott was the D coordinator for Carolina last year.
I don't think that they're going to feature him quite as much, but I still do like Shady McCoy just because he's so talented. I mean, if you don't play him that often, you're just a bad coach. I mean, seriously, like you have a certain number of players that are really, really good players. LaShawn McCoy is one of them.
Right.
I don't see him falling off at this point. He's still, he's not young, but he's never been a speed back. So it's not like that's not his game per se.
The other thing you got to remember too is he came into the league so young. I mean, yeah, there's some tread on the tires there, but you also have the aspect of him being fairly, young for a guy that has that many carries. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
He's going off right now at the end of the first round, usually for FFPC drafts. So I think that if you
seems kind of fair though.
Yeah, given again not an exciting offense that's in Buffalo this year, especially if they have to bring in a new quarterback. I mean, God, I don't think
you're picking up a lot of value on Shady McCoy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of value on the number 5 guy on this list, DeMarco Murray. Wow.
Yep.
Just gangbusters in 2014, could not be more invisible in Philadelphia in 2015, and then in 2016. You know what's interesting?
That's because that head coach is a racist.
What?
What the Phillies head coach?
Oh,
the racist
Chip
head
Kelly.
coach.
Yeah,
exactly.
No.
They want to play a black player.
Yeah. Well, he did sign him though.
Yeah. Well,
trade for him, whatever.
Yeah, then they had
he
problems.
signed him. Yeah.
Just get rid of Kelly. He's a problem.
They did. So DeMarco Murray, I think I said this on the show before. I saw all these high-stakes guys, successful high-stakes guys, taking DeMarco Murray in the 5th and 6th rounds, and I was just saying to myself, like, these guys have lost it. It's going to be a bad year for them. They just, I can't understand this pick. Just what a waste, these guys. And of course, Murray crushes it, and those guys won a ton of money.
Good.
So I think that again, we look forward to this year. Everybody and Derrick Henry, Dave. I don't know if you've seen this, but Derrick Henry right now in FFPC drafts, if I can find it here. This makes for great radio. I always appreciate this. Going in the early to mid 6th round right 60. Now.
So where's Murray going?
And Murray is going right now in the mid 2nd.
Mid 2nd.
Does that seem right to you? Does it seem like his backup should be chosen 4 rounds behind him in the 6th?
It's not that bad. I mean, because Murray is pretty old and he's got a lot of carries under his belt.
Right.
And Henry's now a second year back, and he's got fantastic talent.
Right.
I kind of get it.
Does a lot of elite things.
I get
it for Tennessee.
I would actually. This is one of those years where I would actually not feel that bad about taking Murray in the 2nd and then picking up Henry in the 6th.
You would take a backup running back in the 6th round.
You damn right I would, Balky.
Wow, that is.
Especially like a DE, I would do it for sure.
Yeah. Wow.
Lock that up. Lock it up.
I wish I could think of I got 5 on it for that.
I wouldn't be, but it wouldn't. That's not my first.
Right, I know it wouldn't be your first choice, but you would, faced with the prospect of Henry being the best available there, you would have no problem taking him. I would
consider it. I wouldn't reach for him in the 5th, and especially if I waited and then he was there in like the 7th, I would take him.
Right. Okay. Melvin Gordon makes it in number 7 thanks to all those touchdowns. Speaking of touchdowns,
by the way, I don't like Melvin
number
Gordon.
8.
I think he's going to be a bust this year.
Again.
I don't think he's that talented.
You fight me on the whole time. Now, you talk about elite things that he does. He is super fast.
No, he's not.
Melvin Gordon is?
No, he's not. He ran a 4.5 40 at, 210?
Yeah.
Big whoop.
Fast.
That's what your boy Dalvin Cook just ran today.
Yeah.
He's not that fast.
Well, I've spent this whole show talking about how non-excited I am about Dalvin Cook's performance today.
Well, that's fine.
I always thought Gordon was more of a burner, though. I didn't realize he ran a 4.5.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't like some incredible.
No, I'm not going to fight the Dizzle.
I was actually hoping that Melvin Gordon was going to run like a 4.35, 4.4 something.
Yeah. Okay, and you're going to fight me on this, but again,
he's really good at running through holes when they're huge holes.
Right.
And then he still has Danny Woodhead to deal with.
Right. And he had a ton of touchdowns last year too, which again, you might say like, well, Balky, he scores touchdowns. That's what he does.
4.52.
But I would say that he is the type of player that may not see that many touchdowns this coming year. Same thing with the guy right behind him, number 8, LeGarrette Blount. If you drafted him late,
well, we don't know what he's going to be this year.
Doesn't matter. He's not scoring 18 touchdowns this coming year, and I got 5 on that. I'll give you odds on that.
No, I'm not. I feel like Blount is like this guy that everyone thinks is like a moron because he's got like dreadlocks and stuff like that. But every year
whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that's not me saying. I'm saying that people think that.
But
he goes. Every year he just goes into Belichick's office. They sit down, have a beer together, and be like, "Hey, want to play again? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to get another ring? Okay. How about $1 million? Yeah, that's fine. Let's go." I feel like Blount is like this super smart guy who's ended up with like 7 or 8 rings on his hands.
Yeah.
And and Belichick's be like, "Oh, one of my favorite players of all time, LeGarrette Blount. That guy was just fantastic."
Yeah.
Because Blount had the bad reputation for punching that guy way back in college.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't. You probably didn't see this, but at the Cavs-Celtics game the other night, Bill Belichick was sitting courtside, and LeBron went up for a follow-up on a putback, and he missed it, and he kind of stumbled into the stands right into Bill Belichick. And somebody said to him after the game, "Did you realize who you fell into?" And LeBron said something to the effect of, "Yeah, I had to watch where my leg was going because I knew I was running into a legend."
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Okay, so anyway, so back to this. I'm just going to pick and kind of skip around here the last couple of minutes we have. Number 10, Jordan Howard. What did we miss on him last year? Everybody was down on Jeremy Langford. We were saying Langford was going to rise up boards. He kind of did but he did not do anything with it.
No, Langford was terrible, and Howard was great.
And he crushed it.
Yeah.
What did we miss on?
I think I was wrong for sure.
I was too, but I'm saying like what did
I didn't think that a player that got drafted in that spot would outperform. Now, granted, Langford was a late pick anyway, but Langford actually did pretty well. I didn't think he would overtake the incumbent, which actually was a mistake because Langford had no pedigree whatsoever. So that was the kind of mistake there. Is that we should have just said that this is an open competition. The better player will get it, and Howard's going to be the better player.
I'll tell you what else I didn't like about Jordan Howard. John Fox treats rookies like cancer. He never plays rookies, and then what does Howard do? Second leading rusher in the NFL. What?
Yeah, well, I think he plays rookies. No.
Well, apparently he does now. Maybe, I don't know if it was just a rebuilding aspect where he knew they were going to suck and they couldn't compete with the other three teams in the division. I'm not sure.
Can we give some props to the last guy on the RB1 chart? Not by
Frank Gore,
Yeah, exactly.
I would say
RB1, what is he, 50? I mean, 32, 33.
Turns 51 in October.
I mean, it's incredible.
The thing is, I would say, let's give him props.
33.
Let's give him props in his last year as an RB1. He's probably be an RB1 for the next 10 years.
I know, right?
We talk about Adrian Peterson being a cyborg. Frank Gore is like the OG cyborg. He's the OGC.
Yeah, he really actually is.
So that's pretty crazy that he finishes at number 12. It's just so hilarious. Every mock draft out there. Dalvin Cook to the Colts at, now 15 because they lost the coin flip today. But Dalvin Cook to the Colts. Screw you, Frank Gore. All you do is put up great numbers.
No doubt.
And again, the bar for being the number one running back or being a RB1 or an RB1 in fantasy football right now is not very high, but still got up there. Jay Ajayi, Spencer Ware, they really helped you out for a couple of weeks this year if you played them right.
So, I mean, I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit. So, I mean, RB1 is 200 points, 210 points. That's how low it is to become an RB1.
Right, yeah.
That's why I look at a player. I'm going back to McCaffrey now. You cannot tell me a player that catches the ball like him and makes plays like him is not going to get 200 points every year.
Yeah, just falling into it.
I'm serious. I mean,
as long as he stays healthy.
250 every year.
Yeah.
250 every year as long as he stays healthy because he's a playmaker, super fast, super quick. Whoever gets him is going to make sure he's getting the ball. He's getting a ton of targets, and he's going to get some carries.
A rich man's Danny Woodhead.
That's exactly it.
You know?
I mean, I'm telling you, man. Plus, he went to Stanford. I mean, he probably got a 35 on his ACT, 36.
We didn't talk about this at all because it happened while you were gone. Very funny, by the way, in the ACT. But the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship had their second Dynasty startup draft that myself and Leroy share a team on, and we actually, as our number one running back, drafted the number 15 guy on this list this year. A guy I spent years trying to trade at Carrington, and then I drafted him as my number one running back for me and Leroy in that league. I'm telling you, what sold me on Carlos Hyde is when Chip Kelly was running the football down by 40 points in the third quarter, and he's still giving it to Hyde. I'm like, it doesn't matter if this guy's healthy. He's gonna keep getting the ball. And so then I look at Kyle Shanahan and what he's done for the running backs that he's had in his career. He comes over to San Francisco talking good things about Hyde, wanting to bring another guy in there to keep Hyde healthy. So, Hyde's not going to – I would rather have Hyde have fewer touches and be healthy out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So he's a guy I look to take a big step this year. Isaiah Kroll, one spot ahead of Todd Gurley. Of course, we all saw that coming, which is insane.
Kroll's a guy in Carrington I always get pissed because I never, ever, ever, ever start him. And then he always outscores some of the guys I've started. Yeah,
I don't think there's a whole lot else that I really want to talk about on this list. It'll be interesting to see what the Packers do with Ty Montgomery, if they bring back Eddie Lacy. And then, of course, Corey Clement. I don't know if you saw this, but he spoke to the Packers at the Combine. Corey Clement,
why do you speak to the Packers?
The Packers are just meeting with a bunch of people. They met with Dalvin Cook today, too.
No, just interesting is the Wisconsin connection.
Right. And Clement said that one of the scouts told him, and granted, take this for what it's worth, but the scout said, we're actually looking at drafting 2 running backs in this draft.
I wouldn't doubt that.
If they're drafting 2 running backs, how serious can they be about bringing back Lacy? I can't imagine them having Montgomery, Lacy, because they want to keep Montgomery at running back, having Montgomery, Lacy, and 2 rookie running backs that they're drafting. I get it if one of them they're just signing after the draft. But, investing 2 draft picks, and they only have 8 picks in this draft. It's not like they have 15 picks to piss around with. They're not Cleveland, for God's sake. So you look at that. If there's any shred of truth to that, Eddie Lacy might be in a Giants uniform or a Raiders uniform or something like that next year. Which, by the way, He's our number 2 running back in that league.
Who?
Lacey.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I think Lacey, the Packers are smart enough to realize that they absolutely cannot count on Eddie Lacey, right? To be anything.
No, not to be anything.
Fat, injured, whatever. It's just not that. Look, give him away. Whatever.
He was on.
Enjoy.
He was averaging over 5 yards a carry when he got hurt last year. Let's just leave it at that.
That's fine. You know, I know we're running kind of long, but
yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I had a Porsche 924, and it was this car. I loved it. It was fun to drive around, but you know, like the windshield wiper motor broke. And, like, the windows that came off the tracks. And so that was the car. I've told this story at work before, but I gave that car to my brother as a free gift. I'm like, hey, man, just take this car. You know, and also the exhaust fell off in the manifold back, so we had to straight pipe it with this exhaust from Fleet Farm. I don't know I'm not a mechanical type guy, so I gave it to my brother, who then became a materials engineer. I always say it's because of the fact that I gave him this Porsche. It's a piece of crap. It always breaks down. Just get rid of it. Get it out of your house. Get it away from yourself. That's Eddie Lacey to me.
What did he do?
No offense to your Dynasty team.
What did he do with the Porsche?
He fixed it up and he drove it around in high school. So he had a Porsche in high school. It was $4,000.
What you're saying was...
And it was during the time the Matrix came out and he had a trench coat.
Okay.
So they thought he was evil and he went to Lutheran high school.
So what you're saying is he actually counted on that Porsche to play a role in his life. Maybe not a dominant role, but to get him around from place to place on first and second down and near the goal line.
Yep, you're right. To get him to school.
He did get some value out of that Porsche.
Maybe Lacey just needs to be treated right.
Yeah, he needs a materials engineer.
Materials engineer.
He needs a materials engineer, and let me tell you what, that materials engineer, Mike McCarthy.
I think it's gonna be a different team. I do.
It could
Someone
be.
else will be able to take Lacey
hey, listen,
and rehab him. They can fix him up.
Yeah. Their dad has a 6 set of tools, TV repairman. The other great thing about Lacey is like it's not like we lose him if he signs with somebody else.
Fine. That's actually probably better for you.
And if he does sign with somewhere else, probably be for significant money, and they're going to give him a lot of opportunities.
True,
so
very true.
I feel good about that.
I don't mind Lacey's dynasty value overall. I just think for the Packers they need to move on.
Hey, let me ask you this. I know we're running long. Deion Lewis, James White, I think were like the number 3 and 4 running backs on this team, but it went Jordan Reed at tight end, and then Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Demaryius Thomas, Randall Cobb as the top 4 receivers. Okay. What do you think of that core?
Yeah, it seems pretty good.
It's all right?
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
Definitely better than that first one.
Probably
okay.
so.
All right, fair enough. That is going to do it for our extended show tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm glad we stayed on here.
Yeah.
We can talk about your dynasty team.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get your opinion on it. I want to thank Shane Hallam, of course, Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob, our audio engineer, Bryce. Rob is, of course, our producer and mutual friend. I want to thank you for tuning in. Pick up a Dynasty Orphan team. Sign up for that 250, those 250 Dynasty startups. Those are going fast, and plenty of satellites to appease you. Draft a team while you watch a combine this weekend. That's always fun. Listen to that Fantasyland podcast, High Stakes Slowdown, back on Thursday. Scott Engel is up next. Your weekend starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I gotta go, cause I got me a drop top, and if I hit the switch, I can make the ass drop. Had to stop at a red light, looking in my mirror, not a jacker in sight.
Hey, by the way, that cocktail video that Kevin O'Connor posted in the 500 Dynasty #1, Zebcap sent it to me. He's like,
oh, great.
Subject line, you've been warned.
Oh, my goodness. Wonderful.
I got my night planned.
Great.
Progressive presents Mindflowness with Flow.
Before you lies a beautiful meadow. In that meadow, Progressive Direct has placed its auto insurance rates alongside those of competitors. You select the lowest rate and feel a great sense of calm. A great sense of...
Compare Progressive Direct rates with competitors' rates so you can rest easy. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.